On this edition of the Hockey Nuts podcast, we get you caught up with all the World Cup preliminary round action. We also discuss the NHL headlines from the past week. Then, we give you team-by-team previews of all 7 teams in the Pacific Division. All this, plus the KHL Minute and our picks of the week coming up next. This is the Hockey Nuts podcast, Season 1, Episode 7, recorded on Thursday, September 22nd. Team USA fails again.
Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Hockey Nuts podcast. My name is Wayne. I'm here with Steve, and I can speak for him that we are pretty excited for what's been happening the last week.
How you doing there, Wayne? Good to be with you.
Good. How you doing? Although we are both Americans, we're not exactly excited about the American results, but the hockey play in general has been a lot of fun to watch. I don't know about you.
Yes, it's been a blast. Even in our team losing, I got a lot of good thoughts about it, positive feelings about it. I kind of quipped, and I didn't predict it, but I kind of quipped, when we were talking about who was going to do what. I said, watch Team Europe win. And I probably jinxed the whole thing.
Yeah, okay, so it's your fault. All right, we're going to blame you now.
All right,
everybody, blame Steve. Steve's fault that Team USA lost.
I have to be real careful. I never skated on the ice to play hockey. I only played street hockey, so I can't. I defer to you, Wayne. You're the guy with the no.
All right. All right. Well, let's go ahead and run down the scores that have happened so far in the tournament. As of right now, it is today is Thursday afternoon. Today is the 22nd.
22nd. That's right.
Yeah, Thursday afternoon. So as we're recording this, the Team Finland, Team Russia game is going on right now as we speak. But let's get you up to date on all the scores that have happened up until today's games, and we'll go from there. On September 17th, that was the first 2 games of the tournament. As we mentioned before, Team USA lost their first game against Team Europe. That was a 3-0 score. I was very surprised at that game. I know I was working that day, but I was able to stick my phone in the corner of my department there and was able to watch the game on my phone. So and I wasn't actually watching the game. I was basically working and then coming back, seeing where we're at, and then going back to work, and then coming back, just coming and going to the phone just to get us catch up. So, but it was pretty disappointing the start that Team USA had, and they really put themselves behind the 8 ball with that Europe loss.
They did. They really did. I felt for Quickie with those goals. The one where it was a 2-1-0, he had no chance to stop 2 of those goals. And I don't know. It just seemed that Team USA didn't have the patience in that game when they fell behind to work it one shift at a time and try and, struggle their way back into that game.
Yeah. Yeah. It just seemed they came out flat and they just weren't prepared. And almost to a point that they were looking past Team Europe to their next game, which was Team Canada. And of course, we'll get to that. But yeah, it just seemed like, I don't know. It's hard to say what was going on in the locker room with that team, but it wasn't a good start for Team USA. The second game of that night, though, had Team Canada, and they came out and dominated Czech Republic to the tune of 6-0. I didn't get to see that game either. I was reffing that night, so
I watched that game, and it was, it was one of those ones where you see it, it's 2-0, and I was talking to my wife, and we flipped to another channel. We came back, and then it was 3-0, and then it was 5-0, and it was just a steady barrage of Team Canada.
Yeah. So that one was pretty one-sided, but Canada came out and set the tone that they are absolutely the team to beat in that one. On September 18th, Sunday, Game 1 featured Team Sweden versus Team Russia. Sweden won that game 2-1. And then the second game that day, Team North America, which has been kind of the darlings of the tournament, they came out and beat Team Finland pretty soundly, 4-1.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to see bits and pieces of that game, and we pretty much predicted it, and everybody was predicting that North America was going to be a fun team to watch, and they did not disappoint in that game. To watch them fly up and down the ice was pretty fun to watch.
It was. That was a great game for them. Finland really never had a solution for them. And in fact, I think it was Finland's worst game so far. I haven't watched the Russia game today, but
well, as of right now, they're down 3-0. Just
wow. Yeah, Russia turned on they seem to have turned on the Jets after that first loss.
Yep. Moving on to September 19th, that's Monday. Team Europe beat Team Czech Republic in the, I don't know what you want to call it, the lowest attendance game probably of the tournament, because we joked on the last podcast at how cheap tickets were for that game. But it turned out to be a pretty good game. Team Europe won again, beating Team Czech Republic 3-2. That game had huge implications for the Team USA, because that put Team Europe at 2-0. And, of course, Czech Republic went down 0-2. So that made the game coming up later in the week, Team USA versus Canada, a must-win for Team USA.
Right.
And then the other game that day, Team Russia beat Team North America 4-3. And I watched that game, and that was a fun game to watch. Team North America and Team Russia just seemed to be trading. It's like a heavyweight bout, just trading offensive chances one after another. Yeah. The game started out a little slow. There wasn't a lot of scoring early in the game, but as the game progressed, they started doing really well, scoring goals.
I think, in previous podcasts, Wayne, you had pegged it right, saying, Team Russia is the offensive powerhouse of Group B. And in that game, they certainly showed it, at least for a good stretch of that second period.
Yep.
They seemed to be the team flexing their muscles as far as their offensive weapons.
Yep, absolutely.
That's what I got. Yeah.
Now, on to Tuesday, September 20th, we had Team Sweden against Team Finland in the first game, and that one went to Team Sweden 2-0. And that one went pretty much as expected there. Team Sweden has looked very strong in this tournament. In fact, that essentially clinched an advancement onto the next round for them.
Right.
And then in the second game, Team Canada beat Team USA. My score says 4-2. Is that right?
That's correct.
I thought
That's
it
right.
was, for some reason, I was thinking it was 5-2. But okay, so 4-2 was Team Canada versus Team USA. And of course, I mentioned on the last podcast, I missed that game as well because I had to referee some hockey games myself. And but I was able to watch it kind of on speed replay later on in the day, even though I knew the score, because the guys at the rink had it on there. Some guys had it on their phone. Other guys had it on the scorekeeper had it on his computer at the scorer's bench, and so I knew exactly what was going on during that game. But again, that was a must-win for Team USA because they were already down 1-0 or 0-1. Canada was 1-0. Team Europe had already had 2 wins, so Team USA essentially was put in a spot where they had to beat Canada no matter what.
That's right.
And to go into that kind of pressure against essentially the best team in the world, I didn't think Team USA had much of a shot.
Yeah, that was tough. It was a tough one. When I went to bed, it was 4-1. I could not finish watching that. My work, I'm up early in the mornings on my job, but I watched it and it was 4-1, and I was like, God, I don't see how they're going to do it. My wife came to bed later on and said 4-2. That was it. So,
yep.
Yeah, difficult one.
So very disappointing tournament for Team USA. They're essentially 2 games in, and they're already eliminated. And they play actually later on Thursday or tonight as we record this. And the game essentially doesn't mean anything. It's Team USA against Team Czech Republic, and both teams have already been eliminated.
Yes.
So this one here is just for pride at this point.
That's right.
And, we were speculating before the game how Team USA would come out tonight. And, I reminded Steve that during the Olympics, in the bronze medal game, because Team USA was in the semifinal and got trounced in the semifinal game, and then they came out in the bronze medal game and just laid a complete egg. They just looked like they didn't care. And we're just both hoping that Team USA has a little bit more pride this time around and doesn't play like that again tonight.
Right.
So
That's right.
So on to Wednesday, which would have been yesterday as we record this. Team North America beat Team Sweden in probably the most exciting game to watch in the entire tournament.
That's right.
That was a 4-3 win in overtime. And to watch Team Sweden and Team North America trade bouts in the overtime period on that 3-on-3 was amazing to watch.
Yeah, that was.
To see, the Sedins go up the ice and then come back down, and McKinnon with that sick move on Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah.
I mean, he had so much time with the puck, and he just, I don't know. It was just one of the best display of stick handling I've seen in a long time.
McKinnon's had a good World Cup.
Yeah,
he's played very well for Team North America.
Yeah, he has. I mean, the headlines are Jack Eichel and
Johnny Gaudreau,
and you got Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews. The first goal in that game was pretty fun to watch. Did you see that one?
I'm trying to think back.
The Connor McDavid to Austin Matthews goal.
Oh, I did see that one.
Kind of a quick 2-on-1.
Yep.
That was pretty amazing. To see the two number one picks from the last two drafts on the same line.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
It looks like it's going to be, those two guys are going to be in the league for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So that was a real fun game to watch. And then the final game last night was Team Europe against Team Canada, and Canada came out and won that one They pretty much dominated that one from start to finish. That was a 4-1 final.
Right. They won it going away.
Yeah, pretty much.
They really never looked back.
No. So that puts the standings at Canada 3-0, Europe 2-1, USA 0-2, and Czech Republic is sitting at 0-2 as of right now in that pool.
That's right.
And in the other pool, we've got Team Sweden, who's already clinched. They're 2-0-1. North America sitting at 2-1. And then, of course, Russia and Finland have each, they're playing their last game right now as we speak. Russia's 1-1, and Finland's 0-2. But Russia, if they beat Finland, which it looks like they are, it's 10 minutes left in the third, and it's still 3-0 Russia. Russia will advance on account of having beaten North America in the head-to-head.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll have in the semifinal, you'll have Sweden and Russia and Canada and Europe. And Europe will play Team Sweden in the semifinal. Canada looks like will be playing Russia in the semifinal, which I think will be an amazing game to watch.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
The Sweden-Europe game has a little bit less of a draw here in the North American area, but it'll still be a fun game to watch as well, for sure.
And there'll be a lot of fans from around Europe attending that game in Canada, attending that game in Toronto. They'll draw the fans in from Germany and Slovenia and all the countries there. They seem to be well represented if you've watched Europe's previous games. They've got a very representative crowd, it seems, when they scan the audience.
Yep. Well, what essentially turns out to be, and you got 3 out of the 4 teams are from Europe. So
right, that's right.
This tournament has turned into, there's a lot of speculation and conspiracy that the tournament is rigged to allow Canada and the U.S. to make it to the semifinal and final. But if that was the case, and I doubt that they quote unquote rigged it, but if that was the case, it looks like they won't be getting what they want anyway.
That's right.
But for TV audiences, that Russia-Canada, that'll be a huge hit up in Canada because of the long rivalry that Canada has with Russia in international play. So that's essentially where the World Cup is at the moment. But the semifinal games do take place this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. The first semifinal takes place at 7 p.m. on Saturday, and then the other semifinals at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. And then the two winners of these semifinals will play in a best-of-3 series starting on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then Thursday and the following Saturday, October 1st, will be games 2 and 3.
Yes.
So
That's all.
Now, as far as other news coming out of the World Cup, Aaron Ekblad apparently received a concussion against Team Russia. And of course, Ekblad plays for Team North America. So he has left that team in order to get examined by doctors. There have been other injuries in the tournament, but I think this one here so far has been, in my mind, the most severe at this point. I don't know if you've seen any others. I mean, there's been a lot of bumps and bruises, but all the other injuries I've seen coming out of this tournament, they're all expecting the guys to be ready for their NHL start of the season.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So far, knock on wood, the fears of long-term injuries has not come to fruition, at least to this point.
That's correct. That's right. That's another plus of what the USA's quick exit. Most of our players, not all of them, but most of them will be back. That were on the team. They'll all be back in good standing and ready to start with the preseason, which starts up actually preseason starts on Sunday.
Yep. And and after, by the time the preseason starts, there's really only 2 teams left.
That's right.
Because Sunday's the semifinal game of this tournament, which will bring us down to just 2 teams. So makes me kind of nervous though. If Europe goes all the way to the final in this thing, my boy Chara, he's gonna be in for a long season. Having to play the whole World Cup all the way to the end, but he hasn't looked too bad. I mean, he against some of the faster players, he's kind of gotten beat a few times, but he hasn't looked too bad.
Nah,
certainly not the Chara of old, but I was expecting a little bit worse from him. But he's doing all right.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a bit of a conspiracy theory on this whole tournament. And
I'm anxious to hear this.
And I'm not sure. Canada seems to want to win these tournaments really bad, right?
Yeah.
Now I get it. They wanted this to be an 18 tournament, and there's really only 6 countries that can compete at a reasonably consistent amount at the world class level. All the other countries beyond the big 6, as they call it, compete every once in a while, but not consistently, right?
That's correct.
So that leaves us a 16 tournament, and they want to go 8. Well, my conspiracy theory concerns the North American team, because I think Canada, in coming up with this North American team, created a way to divide Team USA to make them easier to beat. That's my conspiracy theory.
I agree with it 100%. I was going to say that, if the opportunity presented itself. I think you're absolutely right.
Because, Canada's got plenty of players. They're going to be deep. They can divide the Canada team in half if they want, or, take the top young stars off the top. They probably wouldn't have made Team Canada anyway with all the talent that they've got. I mean, Shea Weber was a healthy scratch in one game, and Claude Giroux was a healthy scratch in another game. When you're healthy scratching some of the best players in the world, you're pretty good to begin with, right?
Yeah.
But Team USA, the players that played for Team North America that are American, like for example, Sean Couturier, Jack Eichel, Johnny Gaudreau, Dylan Larkin. I don't know about Austin Matthews, but Brendan Saad maybe. But some of those guys would have made Team USA the regular team, right?
Right.
Which would have made Team USA a much tougher team to beat. So Seth Jones, Gostis Bear. I mean, you can name these players, go on and on. 2 of the 3 goalies, although I don't think they would have made Team USA. Gibson and Hellebuck are American as well. that just seems to be that Team USA was made weaker by scraping off the top young talent that Team USA has.
It didn't hurt Canada as much.
No, it seemed to hurt USA more than it hurt Canada.
Yeah.
For sure. So I call it the divide and conquer.
I think that's exactly right, Wayne.
The divide and conquer theory.
Would Canada have put Connor McDavid in a prominent role on that team as it is now? Would they? Maybe.
He's probably the only one that would have made the team.
Yep. I mean, that team from top to bottom is loaded.
Yeah.
Who are you gonna take off the team to put on? I'm trying to think of the Canadian team, North American. McKinnon,
Nugent Hopkins. Yeah.
McKinnon's not making the team. Neither is Nugent Hopkins.
Yeah.
I mean, you go right down the line. Those guys wouldn't even make the team.
No.
So
I think Connor McDavid would be the only one that Canada would consider putting on their primary team.
And so your point is.
But I listed almost a half a dozen Americans that would definitely make Team USA's team had they been available to Team USA. So, so not crying foul, but just seemed to help Canada by dividing the Team USA team. I think next time around, if they're going to do this, if they're going to make a Young Stars, let's have Canada step up a little bit and say, let's have Canadians under 23 have a team. And then Team USA can choose to pick their better players. If they're good enough to make Team USA, they should play for Team USA. And then fill out the rest of the under 23 roster with the Americans that wouldn't be chosen by Team USA.
Right. They could have Russia do that over in Europe. Bring in the players. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm picking Russia, but there's a lot of players that play in the KHL that didn't, where is Ilya Kovalchuk, where is he? Well, he's an older guy, but you could pick a 23 and younger guy to make the team. But
Canada wants to have that same, that same be looked at in the sport of hockey the way USA is looked at in the sport of basketball, whereas they're definitely the team to beat. Now, Canada's obviously still the best team in the world, but they're not that far above everybody else. Not like the way it is in basketball, for sure.
That's right. And in this format, anything can happen in one game.
Well, look what happened. Just 2 short games and USA's out. So
it's gone. That's right. You know, Wayne, we talked about this in the practice, the pre-recording for this show. And, I think you and I both were on the same page that this loss and quick exit of Team USA, there's a lot of positives that you can draw from it, but one that I feel is very important, especially to the rest of what we're going to discuss about the World Cup today, is that it brought out the passion in our fans in this country regarding our hockey team.
Yep.
And how it was fielded, what our expectations were and are, how important it was to us. Things that I mean, I don't think I thought about before this World Cup started. And I think it's a good thing. I really do. It's going to promote discussion. There's guys hanging around the water cooler right now talking about it somewhere, and, and they're not talking about the NFL. So, I think that's a good thing.
It definitely is a good thing. Yep.
Yeah.
And speaking of Team USA and how the team was chosen, did you see Phil Kessel's tweet shortly after Team USA lost?
Yes, I did.
For those who didn't, let me pull it up here. Here it is. Phil Kessel tweeted just after Team USA lost to Canada and essentially got eliminated from the tournament. He tweeted, "Just sitting around the house tonight with my dog. Felt like I should be doing something important, but couldn't put my finger on it."
And that's the real Phil Kessel. That's the guy I know.
Yep.
Showing his head, sticking his head out there and let you know about him. That's the guy I'm telling you about when it comes to chemistry on the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll see what happens.
Man, that took some serious sack. I don't care what you say. That took some serious sack to tweet something like that. Because he ticked off a lot of people on a lot of the players in particular on Team USA. I know David Backus had a comment saying that something to the effect of stuff like that is going to be remembered, and essentially he better watch his back, so to speak. So I think games involving current Team USA players playing against the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to get quite interesting this year.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a few guys that are going to want to take a shot at Phil Kessel.
Oh, and, the Penguins-Pittsburgh game. I find a cozy spot to watch that game.
Because the biggest backlash I saw was David Backus name kept coming up as one guy who was particularly offended by that remark. And I don't know why he would say something like that, knowing that it could come back to bite him.
Yeah.
On there.
Let's face it, I'm surprised he's not on the team. Okay, I'm surprised Phil Kessel didn't make the team.
Well, obviously he seems a little bitter about it, for sure.
Yeah. Yep. But he didn't make the team. And it's for whatever reason, I don't know, but he certainly is bitter about not. I mean, I would read into what he said, tweeted, that he wishes he was playing. So I don't know. That's all I got from it.
Because I'm trying to look at David Backus. Yeah, there's the tweet again. Yeah, dripping with snark. That's for sure. Yeah. David Backus said, it's disappointing. I understand there's hard feelings if you weren't picked for the team or if whatever, but the comments are, I think, as a team guy and as a guy that stands by my teammates, win, lose, or draw is a little distasteful and aggravating.
Yeah.
And then he also said, those comments don't get lost in the fray, and those comments are there and have been read, and I think will be remembered when whatever happens going forward happens going forward.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see Backus taking a shot at him. And it makes me wonder, will Phil Kessel ever get picked to play for Team USA anymore?
Yeah.
Now, Kessel did come out and try to defend his tweet by saying it wasn't directed at the players.
Right.
But the players were the ones that were most offended by it. So I guess you got to be careful what you say.
Yeah,
careful what you wish for, Kessel.
That's true. And I'm thinking the same thing about what I say here tonight. So I understand that he look at it from a positive point of view. He wanted to be a part of Team USA. He felt he could make a difference. I felt he should have been part of the team. And
we talked about it in the past. Yeah. How we were surprised that he wasn't. And then there was that speculation that he was kind of injured, and that's why he didn't get chosen.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, it seems like he felt like he was available and ready to go, and they just didn't pick him.
Yeah.
So cool.
They could have used several. I can think of several players. Kyle Okposo was another one. I don't know why he wasn't given a chance. You could go right on down the line. There were several players that Team USA could have had on their team. That I'm not sure why they were not picked.
Well, the Americans came out and said that they built their team to beat Canada, but the problem is they forgot that they had to also beat the Team Europe and the Czech Republic. I think that whole philosophy came back to bite them. Maybe next time they'll go with the most talented team like Canada does and not necessarily the biggest, strongest team to try to slow down Canada.
Right.
So anyway, enough about the USA-Canada talk. Couple of side notes, though, on the World Cup. The league was experimenting with a bunch of new technology in terms of the TV product, and I wanted to get your opinion on it. First and foremost, the boards.
Right.
Did you notice the boards?
Yeah.
That basically was a big green screen. They were projecting to the TV audience. They were projecting advertisements on the boards.
And the very first game I noticed that.
At times were fully animated even.
Yes. And you know, what I don't know what I immediately thought of a soccer game because they do the same thing.
Yeah, they do, don't they? Yep.
And I was like, you know, why are they doing this? And you know, I saw that tire print go across the screen and rolling down the boards, and I was like, wait a minute, what is that? And I immediately thought of a soccer game. When you watch a soccer game, that's what you see.
Yep. I found it a little bit distracting, in particular when they did the animation. Now, it seemed like they only tried to do the animation like during whistles or right as they're dropping the puck, so they didn't distract too much from the game. And I hope they don't go to these animated boards while play is going on, because my first impression is the whole thing's distracting for me. You know, it's not a perfect situation either. It's pretty good, but it's not perfect because at times you'd see player sticks would disappear in the boards.
Yeah.
Like if they played with a white stick. When they sprayed snow up on the boards,
that's what I was going to say.
It would kind of flake out a little bit. The puck would sometimes disappear when it got, you know, lifted up over the boards.
That's right.
So it wasn't perfect, but to me it was a little bit distracting, and I'm not sure. And then when they show a different camera angle, like one of the lower level camera angles, you'd actually get to see the advertisements who were really on the boards.
Right.
Now,
if it's a face-off and they went to a camera that was down on the ice, and they only had a small section of the boards, there wasn't enough space for them to put the animated screen on, so you'd see 3 or 4 different companies advertising their goods in that little small section.
Yeah, you'd see the ads that the people in the building are seeing.
Right.
Because the projections are only seen by the TV audience.
That's right.
Now, on the business side of things, I would hope that the companies that are paying to have their ads actually printed on the boards, were paying a little bit less, knowing that their ad is not going to be seen by the TV audience. Yeah, I wouldn't be happy with that.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
that's a very good point, Wayne.
Yeah. So, but that's for the NHL and those companies to deal. It's not so much a fan issue.
Yeah, that's right.
Another thing that they were playing with was the ref cam. Now that I thought was pretty interesting. Being myself a ref, you know, I'm used to that point of view anyway, in terms of, you know, the leagues that I referee. That's the game that I'm used to watching. But to see the world's best players from that same point of view that I'm used to was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty neat. Now they did it interchange to the ref cam without any forewarning. At least I don't.
It seemed like they would show a lot of the replays from the ref cam point of view for sure.
That's right.
But the whole thing was pretty interesting nonetheless. You know, obviously you don't referee, so you don't know that point of view like I do.
That's right.
But it was pretty cool. I mean, it definitely was pretty cool to have that up close and personal, you know, feel like you're on the ice with the players. So I do like that bit of tech.
Yes.
You know, not a big fan of the green screen boards, but I do like the ref cam.
I agree with you. I think the ref cam could be more used too.
Yep. And then also, I don't know if you noticed, but in doing research for the show this week, I noticed that I think almost all, if not all, of the NHL teams have upgraded their web pages to the new style that the NHL main page started 3-4 months ago.
With
just the whole new layout, so that everything looks more consistent.
Mm-hmm. I have not noticed that. I've not gone to the Rangers website and taken a look.
Yeah, all the team websites look a little bit different now. It looks more like what the league website went to. And I think all of that is part of that new partnership with the Baseball America, or whatever that company is, Baseball America. You know, that big merger they did last year with Major League Baseball.
Right.
Technologies. I think redesigning the website was part of that deal.
Oh, okay.
So I knew it was coming because they did the main NHL page. I think they did it either right after the playoffs or right before the playoffs, I think it was. Mm-hmm. I think it was right before the playoffs last year. So he knew the team sites would follow eventually, and it finally took place essentially within the past week or two.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a final. Russia has beaten Team Finland.
Wow.
And have advanced. So North America is knocked out. Unfortunately, I was hoping they'd make it through.
Sets up Russia, Canada.
Yep.
I don't know if that's the first semifinal game, but that will be a doozy.
Yep. Yeah, it will. No, it probably won't be. They're always gonna push to have Canada the 8:00 game. If you notice, all Canada's games are at 8:00.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bigger crowds that night. Okay. So unless you have anything else, that's all I got for World Cup.
That's good.
We can move on to NHL.
We hit everything on the head. Every nail on the head. Yes, sir.
So let's run down a few stories that have come out of just the regular NHL teams this week, having nothing to do with the World Cup. First story I have is Dmitry Orlov signed a 1-year contract with the Washington Capitals. The free agent defenseman had 8 goals, 29 points last season. So he was a restricted free agent, and he just signed on a new contract, and I don't have the details of the contract in front of me.
I do not have those either. I did see that. I did not write that down as one of my stories. It happened pretty close to the time here that we're.
I think it happened yesterday. Yeah.
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 I did see it, but I didn't write down the particulars on it.
Okay. Yep. So the next story I have, the Penguins. Did you see what they're doing with some of their season ticket holders?
I did not. I saw this article and didn't read the fine print on it. It was with the picture of Chris Letang. I thought that was Chris Letang, and taking
he was one of them. Yeah. Yeah. There were several Penguins players, and a lot of teams do this now, where they'll take long-time season ticket holders, people that have been season ticket holders for years and years and years, and they'll send players on the FedEx truck specifically to go out and deliver their season ticket packages. It's a big box, right? Well, this year, the Penguins are doing that. They got Chris Letang's one of them. Kessel's going around with them. I can't remember a couple of the other players. There's 3 or 4 players going around handing out season tickets. Well, some of these season ticket holders are actually having a visit from the Stanley Cup. So these players are bringing the Stanley Cup with them to these people's houses.
Wow.
So you've seen some pictures online with season ticket holders with the Stanley Cup in their living room.
Pretty great, man. That's really crafty idea, whoever come up with that. That really is.
So rewarding the longtime season ticket holders by having their moment with the cup for sure is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, that is. Super. Yep. Way to go.
So I thought that was an interesting story this week.
Kudos to Pittsburgh.
Yep. So next story I have, Michael Therrien denies criticizing Matt Pacioretty. Earlier, about a week or so ago, and I can't remember if we mentioned it last week or not, there was rumblings coming out of Montreal that apparently Michael Therrien had said that Max Pacioretty was the worst captain in Canadiens history. That was reported by a Montreal reporter, and I can't remember his name. I don't have it. But that little rumor kind of caught fire, and you know how it is in Montreal. Once one little rumor starts to fly, it turns into a forest fire in a real big hurry there. So Michael Therrien came out this week saying that he never said that, and apparently he had a meeting with Max Pacioretty to discuss that whole situation. And apparently both sides are saying, the whole thing is bunk. It's ridiculous. It's just somebody trying to get the spotlight turned on them to help their own thing. So that'll be something that we'll have to watch in the future to see if there's anything that comes out of that. Yep,
I agree with you. I think Michel Therrien's done a great job at Montreal as far as getting the team all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals a couple of years ago, but time, this is going to be a year where he's going to be looked at and scrutinized very closely, and if Montreal's going to need to get out of the gates quickly and Let's just hope that this doesn't have any effect on the team whatsoever.
Well, what do you mean? He's in Montreal. When doesn't he get scrutinized?
Yeah, you're right.
That's the way it is. That's the way it is in Montreal.
That's right. You're right, Wayne.
I mean, if he sneezes without covering his nose, he's going to get criticized for it. So, I mean, that's just the way they are up there.
Yep.
Columbus Blue Jackets forward David Clarkson failed his physical Wednesday and will not begin training camp because of a back injury. President of Hockey Operations John Davidson reported. Seems like every time he tries to work out, his back is bothering him. So he's not able to get through his workout. So it looks like David Clarkson won't be starting the season with the team.
I read that article. I know Clarkson was with the Devils. And
he's got a fairly long contract. He was with he's got a 7-year deal, $36.75 million, and he's got 4 years left on that contract.
Mm-hmm.
And he's already 32 years old, and he only played 23 games last year. So I guess he had a bunch of injuries last year that he was dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So should be interesting to see what comes with him. Hopefully he'll get back soon.
Yes.
All right, let's go on to a little bit of rookie tournament.
Yes.
Talk. The biggest one and the most well-known and the one that's been going on the longest is the Traverse City tournament up in Detroit. And of course, it's not yours or mine, but our local Carolina Hurricanes won that tournament this year.
I saw that. I couldn't believe it.
Yep. Forward Julien Gauthier, who was just drafted this year, and he scored 2 goals. And goaltender Alex Nedeljkovic, who actually is being talked around here as the heir apparent to Cam Ward, he made 31 saves in the championship game against the Detroit Red Wings.
Mm-hmm.
And they are winning the Matthew West Memorial Cup. So that's the trophy that the winner of that tournament receives.
Yeah, that was really good news. And I think they've won it once before, haven't they?
Yes, they did. Yep. It's the second time they've won it. And I think the last time they won it was 2009, the first year they were in it. So but the final standings in that tournament were Carolina 1, Detroit 2, Columbus 3, Rangers 4, Dallas 5, St. Louis 6, Minnesota 7, and Chicago 8.
Yes.
And your Jimmy Vesey led all scorers with 5 goals, 2 assists. There was another player that had 7 points as well, but Vesey won the scoring title by having more goals than him. So Vesey had a pretty good tournament there.
Vesey had a great tournament. Boo Neves, who is a close friend of his and works out very well. They work out together. Boo Neves, who is a Rangers prospect. He had a very good tournament. He had 1 goal and 2 assists, 3 points total. And then the other Ranger that participated that I can bring to the fore, Brandon Halverson, who's the goalie. They finished 4th, so obviously he did very well. And, of course, Pavel Buchnevich played in that Traverse City tournament. And they said that it still looks that he is on par to get a roster spot. They believe he will make the team, but just not in the top 6, that he wanted to finish in. He is probably going to be in the bottom 6. He might even be a 4th-line player, but I think he'll make the team. And he has committed himself as a Russian. He has committed himself to making the NHL squad and playing as a New York Ranger as soon as possible. So, he's signed, right? Yes, he is signed. I think he's paid the maximum.
So if he doesn't make the team, he'll end up in the American Hockey League. He won't be going back to the K.
That's right. That's right.
So if you're a fan of any of the 8 teams that I mentioned in that tournament and want to see how your players did, I have included a link in the show notes to a complete stats listing of all the players who played in that tournament and how they did in that tournament. So just check out the show notes if you want to see how your guys did. As for the other tournaments, and I'm going to skip around the show notes here a bit because it should be listed right after that. Okay. There were several other rookie tournaments going on around the league, and I had a hard time pulling stats for any of them, but I was able to pull out the winners of all the tournaments. The Toronto Rookie Tournament, which was a tournament of 4 teams, Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, and Pittsburgh. They got together, and Toronto went 3-0 in that tournament, so they're the winner of that one. The Young Stars Classic, which takes place out in Vancouver, with Winnipeg, Calgary, Vancouver, and Edmonton. Edmonton was the winner of that one. They went 3-0. Down in Florida, Tampa Bay hosted their rookie tournament, and that was Florida, Tampa Bay, Nashville, and Washington. And Florida won that tournament. And then in Buffalo, Buffalo hosted 3 teams for the Buffalo Prospects Challenge. And that was with Boston, Buffalo, and New Jersey. And the Bruins came out the winners in that one by beating both Buffalo and New Jersey.
I know you got to be happy with that.
It's pretty much as expected. The Bruins are known to have, some of the better prospects. They're because of all the draft picks that they've amassed over the past several years. They've got a pretty deep prospect pool. So, So I wasn't too surprised with that. Happy and not too much surprised.
Yeah.
Although Buffalo has a pretty good group as well. And there were a bunch of other teams that played little head-to-head types of games. I didn't pull any scores or results on those because those were more just head-to-head, 2 teams getting together. Like I think LA and Anaheim got together to play each other, and there were a couple other matchups throughout the league. I didn't pull any of those. But it was just real hard to pull any. I'm surprised with the amount of talk that before these tournaments that went on that we weren't able to get much more out of there unless you happen to be in those areas.
Yes.
But those were the rookie tournaments. So now essentially what they have is, all those teams involved in those rookie tournaments, already those rookies have a couple of preseason games under their belt. And now as the full preseason gets going, then we'll have, they've already got a couple games under their belt. So that gives the management of those teams better idea of what they're getting out of those players. Right.
So and I didn't see anything I didn't get any information on Boston and how their rookie guys were doing, their prospects in terms of goals and assists. But I was glad to see they won. And, I think, as I've told you, I think Boston is very well set for their future. With the prospects that they have a load of good players, which we talked about on the last podcast or two.
Yeah, I just hope this isn't going to be a gap year. That's where the veterans are not quite up to par, but the rookies are not quite yet ready, and you've got that gap.
Yep.
So the next year, the next year or two for Boston could be gap years for them, where they're just still waiting for the prospects to develop, but not quite good enough to compete. But anyway, we've talked at nauseum about that. Now,
I think it's a playoff team, Wayne. I think
still
Boston playoff team.
Well, I'm hopeful as always that they're always a playoff team. Even in '97 when they finished dead last in the NHL, I was hopeful that they'd come back and make the playoffs. But they ended up finishing dead last and got Joe Thornton as a present for it. Now, speaking of prospects, we got the next generation of United States-born NHL hopefuls are playing in the USA Hockey All-American Prospects game at Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. It's actually tonight, in about an hour from now, actually, as we record this. The event features 42 of the top U.S.-born players eligible for next year's draft. And they're essentially picked by USA Hockey in conjunction with NHL Central Scouting. So what this essentially is, and the Team USA does use this event as part of their selection process for the World Junior team that will compete in December and January in the World Junior Championships coming up. But if you want to get a good look at these guys, I don't know if this game's going to be on TV anywhere. It might be streamed online. I haven't looked into it. I quite frankly won't be able to watch it. I'm refereeing. I'm leaving to referee as soon as we finish the podcast tonight. So I'll be missing all the hockey action tonight again. Thankfully, my referee month comes to an end tonight. I don't have to do any more games after tonight. It's been a rough week and a half.
Oh.
I've been doing one referee game after another. But anyway, so if you want to get into that, you can certainly look into it. I'm sure we'll have results tomorrow on that, and it'll be a good look. I'm looking forward to next year's game because there's 2 players on the next year who will be eligible for the 2018 draft that I've got particularly personal interest is. One of them is a kid named Olivier. I can't remember his last name. Olivier. Can't remember his last name. I just know he's a Maine kid, a Maine native. But he is a Maine native. His father actually played for the University of Maine a season or 2, and he will be playing for the national team development program. The other kid that I have personal interest in following is a kid named Tyler Weiss. He's actually a local kid here in North Carolina, and I've refereed many, many games with his father. So I personally know his father, but he's also going to be playing for the National Development Team program, the team that plays in the U.S. Hockey League, the Junior League, United States Hockey League. Both those kids that I mentioned are going to be playing for the Team USA squad, the I think it's the under 17 team that plays in that league. And they both are eligible for I think it's the 2018 draft that they're eligible for. It may be the 2019. But I've been watching this kid, this local kid, Tyler Weiss. He's dominated the leagues here locally, and his father had put him up into leagues up north where the competition is better to allow him to progress. But it looks like he's going to be a good player to watch. He's committed to BU.
Oh, yeah.
So he'll be a BU player once he gets out of high school. But I believe he's a year younger than my son. So that would make him a 2018 draft.
Wow.
So,
That's
yeah,
really
we're all pretty excited following him.
Yeah, that is.
So, anyway, back to the pros. Defenseman Nicholas Kronwall, who injured his thigh during the offseason, said this past Monday that he'll not be able to start training camp with the Red Wings. Kronwall had surgery on his right knee in January and injured his left knee in March. Kronwall was unable to play for Team Sweden in the World Cup of Hockey, and he had arthroscopic surgery on his left knee on January 18th and missed 15 games, and then sat out 3 more games in March because of his right knee. So both his knees are in bad shape. Yes. And he's 35 years old, has 3 goals, 23 assists, and a -21 rating in 64 games last year. So that's another hit for Detroit Red Wings fans, whereas they lost Pavel Datsyuk to the KHL, and now have lost Nicholas Kronwall.
Another member of the old guard.
So, yeah.
I wonder if that helps them on their cap problems.
As long as he remains injured, that should help them. Yes. Because they'll put him on some sort of an injured reserve. That'll help their situation. Now, restricted free agent Ryan Strome agreed to terms on a 2-year contract with the Islanders this past Tuesday. Financial terms weren't released, but TSN reporting that an average annual salary of $2.5 million. He was the number 5 overall pick in the 2011 draft. He finished with 8 goals and 28 points in 71 games. It's pretty low for a 5th overall pick, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That is. And he's only a few years into the league.
And he's only 23 years old. So maybe this new contract will give him a little bit more stability and get him back the way he should be playing for a number 5 overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
Next story I've got, the Las Vegas NHL franchise has received deposits on all 16,000 season tickets available for the 2018 season. The season ticket drive began last February. That's February 15, with a goal of having 10,000 season ticket deposits. More than 5,000 of them were sold within 2 days, and 9,000 were sold within a month of the launch.
Absolutely amazing.
But the league capped them at 16,000. They wouldn't let them sell any more than that. The arena only holds 17,500.
Yeah.
So looks like at least for year one, we're going to have sellouts every night in Vegas.
Yeah. And you know what? I think it's great. I could have told you that, though. You know, they have hockey fans in that town, and they also
nobody's from there.
That's right. And they have no other team to go watch, maybe unless you want to go to Arena Bowl game or something. But you know, they're you know, there's the way this team sold out seats is really amazing. I watched I think it was a discussion by Kevin Weeks of NHL Tonight regarding what he thought of that arena. He's been in it, and he said it's absolutely breathtaking, state-of-the-art place built for hockey. So that's going to be everything's working out good right now for Las Vegas.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. And
I'm hearing the same thing about the arena at Edmonton, how spectacular it is too.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're all excited for hockey in Las Vegas, and certainly no more so than them, because they keep coming out with headlines every single week. There seems to be a headline coming out of Las Vegas for a team that doesn't even play for another year.
That's
so.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll let them have it anyway. All right. Joffrey Lupul is going to be starting training camp on injured reserve. The Maple Leafs forward had sports hernia surgery in February, and I guess is still not going to be ready to go. So he's a good veteran guy. He'll be good for the young kids anyway, but looks like he won't be starting training camp on the team.
Right.
So Anaheim Ducks forward Rickard Rakell will need 2 weeks to recover after having surgery to remove scar tissue resulting from an appendectomy. Rakell, 23, was hospitalized in Sweden after he was scratched by Team Sweden from a World Cup of Hockey 2016 pre-tournament game against Team Finland back on September 10th. Rakell, who's a restricted free agent, had 20 goals, 23 assists in 72 regular season games.
He's going to be a very important part of Anaheim. They're going to need him healthy.
Yep.
They cannot go without Rickard Rakell.
So he's an injury casualty from the World Cup, but it wasn't due to playing.
Right.
Appendectomies, you know, you got to let that. That's like complicated surgery.
Can be a nagging injury. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Hopefully he'll be back soon. Another injury related to the World Cup. Tyler Seguin, forward for the Dallas Stars, has a hairline fracture in his heel, and his status for Dallas Stars training camp will be reevaluated in a week, General Manager Jim Nils said last Saturday. Upon returning to Dallas, Seguin underwent an MRI that detected a hairline fracture in the heel. He sustained the injury playing in a World Cup of Hockey pre-tournament game for Team Canada on September 9th against Team USA. He pulled out of the tournament on Wednesday and was replaced by Buffalo Sabres forward Ryan O'Reilly. But they are fully expecting that he'll be ready for the start of the season.
That's what I heard.
Yep.
Yep.
So they're not too worried about him. Now, I did notice when I was looking for headlines for this week's show that many teams have announced their training camp rosters already. Their full, 40, 50-man rosters, however many they bring to training camp. So, again, check the NHL website for your team for details. Obviously, we don't have time to go down through team by team on who's going to be attending training camps. Yeah, let's run down a list of 1,000 names. That'll be great listening. But what we will do is we will list a bunch of pro tryouts. This is the time of year where you get a lot of players, particularly that are unrestricted free agents, that get pro tryout contracts, where essentially they're not being signed as a full contract, but they're getting the opportunity to try out. And I'll just run down a list of some of the notable names. There were many more than this list, But these are the names that just kind of jumped out at me as guys that have a lot of experience already playing in the NHL. Defenseman James Wisniewski is going to be playing for Tampa Bay. Defenseman Matt Barkowski is going to be in Ottawa. Goalie Anders Lindback is playing in New Jersey. Forward Daniel Cleary is going to Detroit. Now, he's played there before.
Sure.
Yep.
He has.
Forward Thomas Fleischman is going to be playing in Minnesota. Former Carolina Hurricane Yuri Tulusti will be playing out in Colorado. Forward Sean Bergenheim, forward David Booth, and goalie Jan Denis are all going to be playing in Anaheim.
Yep.
I don't know if you saw any others. Actually, there is one more.
I keep thinking about Chris Versteeg, but I think we talked about Chris Versteeg last week.
We did, yep. Yeah, these are just the ones from the last week. All right, there is another name that has come up in the last, since I was doing some research. Peter Mueller, a guy who played, he was a high-end draft pick. He was drafted number 8 overall back in 2006. He'll be on a pro tryout with the Boston Bruins this fall. Again, he was number 8 overall back in 2006, played several seasons with the Coyotes and the Avalanche and the Panthers before moving on to playing in the Swiss League. And I think he was in Sweden last year. And he actually had respectable numbers. I mean, he had over 50 points in his rookie year in the NHL.
Wow.
But his production tailed way off after that. And it's just a guy that was highly touted and kind of disappeared. I don't know if his commitment level wasn't there or what, but the Bruins are giving him a shot this spring.
All right, that's good.
So
good.
We'll see if he a good name to have, if he can return to the form that got him to be the number 8 overall pick. The Bruins will have a steal there.
Yes, sir. They will. No question about it.
Of course, that's yet another forward on a team that is desperate to get more defense, but we won't talk about that right now. All right. We are on to our part of the program where we're going to continue our team previews. This week, we're going to be previewing the Pacific Division. That will leave us with just the Central Division to finish up on next week's podcast.
Right.
So, again, I'll go ahead and go down alphabetical order, and we'll start with the Anaheim Ducks. Okay, last year, the Anaheim Ducks were 46, 25, and 11, and they actually won the Pacific Division title, but they got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
They really haven't lost too many guys. They lost Mason Raymond, Jared Boll, and Jonathan Bernier, but those guys are coming in to Anaheim.
Right.
And they lost Frederick Anderson, Brandon Peary, David Perron, Anton Hudobin, Chris Stewart, Jamie McGinn, and Mike Santorelli. Those are guys going out. They're a team that is got some cap space. Really, the big changes with the team were to lower level guys. So the core of that team is still intact. And of course, they're a very good team.
Yes.
So definitely I see that team continuing to be a strong team in the West.
I 100% agree with you, Wayne. This is one of those teams that you don't have too often that is strong on the defensive end of the ice as well as a potent offense. They are deep, at the blue line. With the way they're aligned right now, at least with the players that they have, and of course they have a very potent offense.
You got Ryan Getzlaf, Corey Perry, Ryan Kessler, and of course Ricard Raquel. We've already talked about. It's your top 4 forwards, and they're all very, very good players.
Getzlaf or Perry could score 50 goals a year. Perry's done it.
Yep.
Or come very close. And Getzlaf could do it. He had a letdown year last year, but I think that was just I don't look for that to continue this year. I think he's going to come back to his form.
Yep. And I think this is the year that John Gibson gets the number one, the undisputed number one, now that Anderson's gone.
That's correct. I agree with you. I think you're right. I think Gibson will be the goalie. I think Frederik Andersen going to Toronto hurts this team because John Gibson has not played a full NHL season, but he may take full advantage of it.
No, him and Anderson split time last year. Yeah.
Right. So it's going to be a growth thing for him. In the NHL, it will be, and time will tell on how that shapes out. I had that down as a major weakness for them, which might not be a weakness at all.
Well, if he gets hurt, they're in trouble. If
they're
Gibson
in trouble.
Gets hurt, yeah.
That's right. They have to rely on Bernier then,
because they're going into that in a clear number one scenario. Now that kind of protects them in terms of, if you keep in mind the expansion draft, you're probably not going to lose any goaltenders if you're Anaheim.
That's right. Very good point. You're probably going to lose a defenseman. I have their defense right now, and it's loaded. Sami Vatanen, Cam Fowler, Kevin Bieksa, Simone Dupre, Hampus Lindholm, Clayton Stoner, Josh Manson, Shea Theodore, and a guy they say to watch out for is Shea Theodore, and Brandon Montour, who all saw time. They've played in the NHL and were called up.
Yep.
So they have a loaded defensive line, blue line.
Yeah, they're very strong.
Yeah.
So, they probably will lose a defenseman more than anything.
Yeah. And that helps John Gibson because he doesn't have to be, the lone defensive stalwart on the team. Jonathan Bernier, they can come in and switch, and probably Bernier will get some wins because that defense is so stingy and does not allow many shots per game.
Yep.
Especially not to get through to the goalie. They block shots. They're a good team.
Yep, certainly. So we expect them definitely to be back in the playoffs for sure. Now, on to the Arizona Coyotes is the next team that we're going. They were 35-39-8 last year, 78 points, fourth in the Pacific Division, and they missed the playoffs. But this is a very young team. They're doing some interesting moves. They've got the youngest GM in the league history, actually, John Chayka. Who's still in his 20s. From what I understand, he's kind of a stats guy. He's a guy that uses the advanced statistics to his advantage, and is running his team almost scientifically rather than gut feel like a hockey guy. Hockey, because Chayka was never any kind of hockey player, at least not at a high level anyway.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting.
So he's one of those new hotshot GMs that everybody seems to be watching, and if he builds this team into a strong contender, and it looks like they're heading in that direction with some of the young guys they've got, then this team will be a team to reckon with in the future. A couple of things that they've done is they've made a couple of trades where they've taken on salaries from other teams, from guys who have either retired, like for example Pavel Datsyuk. They own his contract. And they essentially took him on. Mike Boland from Florida, they made a trade for him, took his contract on. But in return, for taking the contract, they also nabbed a few either prospects or high draft picks, and were able to turn those into prospects. So this team is loaded with prospects.
That's right.
And they've got a lot of young stars coming up that are going to be good players in the future. I mean, you've got Dylan Strome will probably make the team this year. He's one of their high-end draft picks. Christian Dvorak, again, another guy who hasn't played much, if at all, and he'll likely make the team. They've got Max Domi already there. Dylan Strome, Jamie McGinn. Shane Doan is the elder statesman of the group. He's the team captain, but he chose to stay there. He could have gone anywhere else as a free agent, and he chose to stay there because he believes so highly in this program. Martin Hansel is also there. He's a nice veteran. Back on D, they've got Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Luke Shen, Alex Goligoski, Jamie
Connor Murphy.
McBain, who was a former Hurricane. He was pretty highly touted when he was here.
Yeah, that's right.
So, this team is probably not going to make the playoffs yet this year, but they're a dangerous team I can see they're building something there.
Yes. If you're in the Pacific Division, you're going to have a tough time beating them 4 times or 5 times, however the schedule works out. If you're the Kings or the San Jose Sharks and you're looking for 5 wins or 4 wins to pad your point total, and I don't know that any of them do that. But what I'm saying is that they're a tough out. They're going to win their share of games against their rival division opponents.
For sure. So yeah, that's a team that's going to be, and they're fun to watch too. With all that youth that they got, they're kind of like the North America of the NHL.
That's right.
Or, there's a handful of teams that are built that way too, that are young and fast and talented. But this is one of them for sure. Mm-hmm. Another one of them, though, is our next team, Calgary Flames. They were at 35-40-7 last year, 77 points, 5th in the Pacific Division, and they missed the playoffs, which is kind of disappointment for them because they made the playoffs the year before,
and they won.
So
they went to the final 8 teams.
That's right, and so they took a bit of a step back last year, but this is another team that's loaded with young talent. They still have a couple of, one in particular, contract situation they need to work out before the season. Johnny Gaudreau is still not signed, and he's arguably their best player at the moment. No disrespect to Sean Monahan, but Gaudreau, as far as pure offensive talent, is probably a better player. But they also have Sean Monahan, Troy Brouwer, Michael Ferland, Sam Bennett, Michael Frolik. So you got some young mixed with veteran players there. Matt Stajan, Alex Chason, who's going to be a newcomer. Matthew Tkachuk, they're talking that he might make the team this year. That's Keith Tkachuk's son. If he plays anything like Keith, he's going to be a fun player to watch. And back on D, you've got Mike Giordano, Derek Engelland, Ladislav Smeed, TJ Brody, Dougie Hamilton. You've got some talent back there too, and then they went out and completely turned over their goaltending this year. They got rid of Jonas Hiller, Nicholas Backstrom, and brought in Brian Elliott and Chad Johnson. So the entire goalie situation is completely new for them, but looks like Brian Elliott will have the starting job to start the year anyway in Calgary.
I agree. Yeah. That's Brian Burke for you, rolling the dice up there in Calgary.
Yeah.
Rolling the whole goalie squad and bringing in those 2 guys. But that may work out to be a very brilliant move, and you just don't know. I agree, though. They've got a lot of young talent. I didn't pick them to make the playoffs, but they may. Stranger things have happened. I almost hate to predict anymore after what happened with Team Europe.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And I too don't have them making the playoffs at this point, but I think they're probably next season they're going to be a regular participant in the playoffs going forward.
Don't you think they need to sign Gaudreau though? I think that's really important, not just for the fact that he's such an elusive, talented skater and a great player. If they don't sign him mentally, the guys may say, "Whoa, God, what happened here?"
Yeah.
I think they really need him for that organization. And I sure hope he signs too, because they're a fun team to watch with him playing. I think he fits right in Calgary.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure what the holdup is. Both sides are being very quiet on that, so I just don't know what's going on there. I mean, he's really the only player, certainly the only notable player that hasn't signed yet. And obviously, the world knows what Calgary's salary cap situation is. So there's certainly room to sign him. You just don't know why it hasn't happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
I guess those details will come out. I expect he'll probably sign I would say within a week after the World Cup ends, essentially after the World Cup ends. I think we're going to see it. Probably, I would expect that by next week we'll probably have more news on that front. Now, the next team I have is the Edmonton Oilers, and this is kind of a team that has really, really caught my attention the last several years.
Yeah, I'm excited about talking about these guys.
Yeah,
I'm anxious to hear what you have to say, Wayne.
Well, see, there's a long history with me and the Oilers. A good friend of mine growing up. This is a guy I knew. I still know him, but since we were little kids, and he grew up an Oilers fan, and of course I grew up a Bruins fan, and of course the two teams played each other in the 80s twice in the Stanley Cup Finals, and Edmonton dominated both series. So I've always had a love-hate relationship with the Edmonton Oilers. Anyway, I've always enjoyed watching, particularly their teams of the 80s. They were an incredibly fun team to watch. So much so that we convinced that other guy and myself convinced our parents to bring us down to Hartford to see a Hartford Whalers game against the Edmonton Oilers. And this was when the Oilers were, the big bad, or whatever you want to call them, the dynasty team. Gretzky was still there, Curry, Messier, the whole lot. All those guys were all there. So we got a chance to see them play in Hartford against the Whalers, and they dominated that game because the Whalers weren't that good that year. And then fast forward to the Carolina Hurricanes 2006 versus Edmonton Oilers. They come out of nowhere, the 8th seed, to win the Western Conference, and took the Carolina Hurricanes to 7 games. So they almost won the cup in 2006, 1 game away. And then after that, they essentially haven't made the playoffs since.
That's right.
And have piled up. Not only have they not made the playoffs, they've finished dead last in a lot of years, and they've just stockpiled draft pick after draft pick after draft pick, and now they're a stacked team with all these young studs.
Yep.
And this year they go out and sign Milan Lucic.
Yep.
To add some grit to their team, because I think they were filled with a little bit too much on the finesse side of things. So I'm really looking forward to watching this year's Edmonton Oilers, because you've got, and then of course they made the trade for Adam Larsson to shore up their defense a little bit. I still think their defense needs a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
But Larsson will certainly be a big help.
I think he will. I think Larsson's going to come around, and that's going to be a good move that Chiarelli made to bring him in. He'll look good for that trade here in a year or two.
But up front, they look scary good. So up front, you've got Luch, you've got McDavid, you've got Eberle, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Puljujarvi is expected to make the team this year. Another guy they drafted high this year. Draisaitl, who's looked good in the World Cup. Benoit Pouliot. Nail Yakupov is one player that I've he was a high draft pick, and he really hasn't done much.
I think he was first overall.
Yeah, and I don't know why he just hasn't done anything to impress anybody so far in his career. Hopefully this year, maybe they'll break out of that. But back on D, they're a little bit weaker. That seems to be the weakness of this team. I mean, you got Larson, of course. You got Griffin Reinhart, Mark Fane, Mark Frazier, Andre Sekera. Sorry, Oscar Klefbom, Darnell Nurse. So there's some young defensemen back there that have some developing to do. But the biggest question I have with Edmonton is scoring won't be a problem for them.
Right.
But can they keep the puck out of their own net enough to make it into the playoffs? I mean, they got to start learning how to win. They got all this talent. They're probably one of the most talented teams in the NHL, but they haven't figured out how to win yet. And I think that's why they brought in guys like Lucic to help that team. You know, he's got a lot of playoff experience, so he can teach some of these younger guys what it takes to make it to the next level.
Yep. I found an interesting stat on this team. Here's the way I look at them. Will they make the play? If you ask the question, will they make the playoffs next year? I think the answer is yes. If the Pacific Division gets 4 teams in, I think they could make it. But if they only get 3, and that may be what happens, it's going to be a dogfight for that third spot, and they may or they may not get in. And if you're just looking at it from strictly how is Edmonton going to do and how are they going to shape up? Last year they were dead last in the Pacific Division. They had 31 wins. And I think they're going to really improve on that this year. I think they could have 40 wins this year, and maybe more. But the stat that I found in the NHL yearbook when I was doing some research on these guys is 5-on-5. They finished 30th and 29th the last 2 seasons in 5-on-5 goals scored against.
Wow.
Yep. The last 2 seasons, they finished 30th last year and 29th the year before in 5-on-5 play.
Yep.
Goals scored against them. And I think it's a combination of the fact that, just like you were saying, they have poor team defense and lackluster goaltending. And Cam Talbot has not been the player that he was with the Rangers, where he was lights out. He won every game except one when Henrik was hurt. So if they can't play 5-on-5, if they turn out 28th or 30th in the league in that stat, again, they're just not going to make the playoffs. They have to improve on that drastically. And I'm not a stats guy, Wayne, but I just see that as I don't watch this team a lot when West Coast games comes on, but I'm going to do it this year because they're going to be a very exciting team to watch, and I really hope they make the playoffs. I'm hoping that they turn out to be a great team, and it'll be good for the city of Edmonton, plus that new Coliseum.
Yeah, and I think and I'm going to go out on the limb and say no matter what, they will make the playoffs this year. I think they've improved enough this year that they will finally take that. And of course, they'll be boosted by having that nice brand spanking new arena that they've got up there that everybody's been raving about. I think that'll be, a big part of the improvement with that team. As much as an arena can be an improvement for a team, I think this team, I think they're ready to take the next step and actually grab that 7th or 8th playoff spot.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see it this year. Of course, I said that last year, and I was dead wrong. But
Well, you didn't have a healthy Connor McDavid. I really think that was the difference. But with Connor McDavid playing the way he's playing now, I see them – they've got too much good talent that's, number one, playing with him but protecting him.
Yep. So
he can play well, and I think he's going to have a great year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Is Connor McDavid is gonna take them as far as they will go. Essentially, he's the heart and soul of that team at this point.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, he has been impressive to watch so far this summer. With some of the videos I've seen with him at practice and his performance in the World Cup. Looks like he's going to be the real deal for sure.
You're right.
All right, let's move on to the LA Kings. They were 48-28-6 last year, 102 points, second in the Pacific Division, and they lost in the first round of the playoffs. So this is one of those teams that suffered in the very difficult Western Conference by having to play tough teams right off the bat in the playoffs, and they just didn't make it through. Players coming in, they have Zach Trotman, Jeff Zatkoff, who's goaltender, Michael Latta and Teddy Purcell coming in. Vincent Lecavalier retired. He's out. Lucic obviously got lost to Edmonton. Jamie McBain, Luke Shen, and Chris Versteeg all left. And I think looking just at the arrivals and departures with the team, I think LA is a weaker team because of it. And I think the Lucic going elsewhere is I'm pretty sure that is a salary cap casualty right there, because they are right up against the cap. They literally have less than 30,000 available at this point in the salary cap. So they're very tight, but they're still a very, very strong team. They have one of the best goalies in the world, Jonathan Quick. Jeff Zatkoff, who actually played some playoff time with the Penguins last year. He was their third string, but when Marc-Andre Fleury got hurt, both Fleury and Matt Murray got hurt at one point. He actually got some playing time during the playoffs.
Yes, he did.
So he'll make a decent backup for them, and he did pretty well.
Yes, he won a game or two against us.
Yep.
We won a game. We beat him one game, but he won 2 games. I think he won at least one, if not 2 games against us.
Oh, okay. Yep. So up front, they still got Kopitar. They've got Jeff Carter. Teddy Purcell will help them. He's done well in the other teams that he's played for. Marian Gaborik, Dustin Brown. I mean, they've still got their key cogs right there. And of course on defense, they've got Drew Doughty, Jake Muzzin, Alex Martinez, Rob Scuderi, Matt Green. And then newcomers, Tom Gilbert, Zach Trotman coming in. So this team should still be good enough to make the playoffs, but I think they're a little bit weaker than they were last year.
I agree with you. I think the Kings are a big aging team now. They were young back in their first cup, but they're a big, tough. They're not a fast team. They
kind of built like the Bruins were.
Yep.
Yeah.
Smash mouth hockey.
Yep.
They
which is unusual for Western Conference, by the way.
Yes, it is. I agree with you. That's right. But they're a great puck possession team. And they know how to when you're playing them, it's very difficult to. They know how to get a hold of the puck in their offensive end, especially, and run plays and set things up. They know how to get control of that puck, and that's what I think is the key to their success.
Yep. Well, good. So yeah, we fully expect them both. The LA Kings to be back in the playoffs this year.
Yes.
Now let's move on to the San Jose Sharks. Get them up here. It's quite a gap between LA and San Jose in my book. Quite a few pages there. All right. San Jose Sharks were 46, 30, and 76 last year. Finished third in the Pacific Division, and they made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final for the first time in franchise history last year. And I was disappointed that they didn't win. I wanted to see them win it. Because obviously many of the Pittsburgh Penguins had won and in years past, but the Sharks had never done it, so I was hoping that they would do it. But they fell a little bit short, lost to Pittsburgh in the Stanley Cup final. But we got some household names come out of them, if they weren't already. The bearded guys in particular, Brent Burns and Joe Thornton. And Joe Pavelski had a pretty good beard going during the playoffs, although he's since cut it. But this team is really going to be pretty much the same team that they had last year. The players coming in, David Schlemko and Michael Boddicker, and players going out, James Reimer, Roman Polak, Matt Tennyson. All those names are all pretty much role players.
Yeah.
For San Jose. So the core of this team obviously is still intact, although they are a year older. And this is another one of those teams that's aging quickly. Joe Thornton is 36, 37 years old, something like that. Right. One of the team leaders. Pavelski's a little younger, but and he's one of the big names on the team. Logan Couture is also a younger guy. But Brent Burns, David Schlemko back on D, Mark-Edward Vlasic, Pickle Man.
Pickle.
Yep. He's a really good player. Thomas Hurdle, Patrick Marleau. I think he was drafted the same year as Thornton. So he's up there in age.
Yes.
Chris Tierney, Joel Ward. So the core of this team is still intact. So everybody's expecting them to make another run for it this year. But I think the window's closing on this team. If they don't do it this year, they probably won't do it.
Yeah, they have a couple years. That's a good point, Wayne. You know, when I was looking at this team and doing some research on them on General Fanager,
yeah,
they had one goalie, Martin Jones. They don't have another goalie listed on their roster, which is the only team like that in the NHL that I've come across. And so that creates a problem because Martin Jones can't carry that team by himself.
No, and I'm sure they're going to be signing. I'm going to pull up their roster here real quick. Yeah, Martin Jones, there's 4 guys on their 40-man roster that play goalie. Troy Grosnick, Aaron Dell, and Mantis Armalis, who's actually a guy that they signed out of Europe. And by the looks of things, he's probably going to be pegged as, or at least he's going to be given the opportunity to be the number 2 guy there, Mantis Armalis.
Okay.
Whereas Dell and Grosnick will be your AHL guys. But I think what will happen during the preseason and training camp is those other 3 goalies. Jones is the clear number 1 there, for sure.
Yep.
So Grosnick, Dell, and Armalis will compete for that number 2 job.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll probably see the vast majority of their preseason games being goaltended by those 3 guys. Jones will get his work in, but they're going to be taking a long look at those other 3 to see who their number 2 guy was. But yeah, up until a point there, Jones was really the only guy they had.
Yep.
And he really wasn't with the team until this past year.
That's right.
Remember last summer they made the trades. And actually, Jones was a Bruin for about 4 days.
Yeah, that's right. And then he backed up Quickie.
Yep.
And, you know, that's where Los Angeles really hasn't made that loss up. Quickie, they got Zatkoff, and he's going to have to step in to Jones's shoes. But that there was a vacuum there, a void. And whether or not that L.A. surfaces up again and comes out on top where they were with Martin Jones, it remains to be seen. But, I mean, San Jose got a good goalie out of that move.
Yeah, they certainly did. And in a way, I wish that the Bruins would have kept him when they had him. But it looked like that after the fact that the Bruins had no intention of keeping Jones, that they seemed like they had a deal already worked out with the Sharks to move as soon as they got Jones to turn around and move him to San Jose for a draft pick, which is how they ended up with having 3 picks straight in the first round of the 2015 draft.
Right.
So
that's right.
Yep. So, but Jones is definitely he's a good player. He looked real good in the playoffs last year.
Yes, he did. Had a great series.
So that leaves us with the Vancouver Canucks as the last team in the Pacific Division. Last year they were 31, 38, and 13. 6th in the Pacific Division. They missed the playoffs. Their key arrival, I only have one for them, is Louis Eriksson. And their key departures, they lost Jaron McCann, Dan Hamwee, and Lyndon Vey. This team, I think, is a team that is heading for the bottom of the standings again. Because the guys they have, I mean, you got the Sedins that have been there forever, but they're well into their 30s. Eriksson, who apparently just went there because he wanted to play with the Sedin twins. He certainly didn't go there thinking he's going to win a cup, unless he was completely delusional. You know, Alexander Burrows is another guy who's older. They just, Alexander Edler. I mean, this team is just loaded with guys that have been there. Or Alex Biega is another one, defenseman. Ryan Miller. The guys that are 30 plus years old. I wouldn't be surprised if we could pull a list of teams and their average age that Vancouver is probably one of the oldest teams in the league.
Oh, yeah.
And the Sedins are not going to carry this team into the playoffs.
No,
There was
that's
a
true.
time that they could, but their production has kind of waned a little bit, and I don't think adding Louis Eriksson is going to be enough to get them back to the playoffs. Because they've missed for a couple of years now, haven't they?
Yeah, they've missed twice now. Tortorella was there for a year and then gone. They didn't make the playoffs. I agree with you 100%. I put them dead last. I think they're going to finish 7th in the Pacific Division.
Which isn't going to make people in Vancouver too happy.
No.
They got a passionate fan base.
They do.
I like those green guys. You've seen the green guys that they have. Every time I think of the Vancouver Canucks, is those 2 green guys that sit right next to the opposing team's penalty box.
Yeah.
They must be able to see through those suits. I don't know how they can see anything, but yeah, those guys are entertaining to watch, some of the things that they do with the opposing players. And I think they came about the year that they played the Bruins in the finals. At least that's when I first became aware of them. Maybe they started doing their antics a year or two before that, but they've been around forever, and yeah, they are funny for sure.
They are.
So with the rundown of all the teams done, let's go ahead and pick them, where they're going to finish in the standings.
Yes, sir.
You want to go first?
You want me to go first? Yes, sir.
All right.
Here's how I picked it. I will, once again, I could not come clean and give definite, this is where they're finishing my mind. But here's what I had. I had the San Jose Sharks once again winning this division. I believe they've got the strength to go through the season and do it again. Then in second place, I had the LA Kings. Third place, and it's really interchangeable with Edmonton, I had the Anaheim Ducks and the Edmonton Oilers, swapping back 3 and 4. It's interchangeable, either one of those teams.
Yeah.
And then in fifth, I had Arizona, 6th Calgary, and 7th Vancouver.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. See, I see this division as 3 teams and then a gap and then the other 4 teams. Okay. Here's what I have. I have Anaheim winning the division.
Oh, wow.
Followed by San Jose, followed by Los Angeles. And I think those 3 teams are pretty much locks for the playoffs. And then beyond that, I've got Edmonton finishing 4th, making the playoffs. Calgary finishing 5th, just missing the playoffs. Arizona 6th, Vancouver 7th.
Wow.
So we got some differences there.
Yeah. No, Anaheim is solid offense and defense, and Randy Carlyle coming back. You know, they could do it. They really could.
But I think this division, I think we're going to see 4 teams make the playoffs.
I think that it's as good a chance for them to have 4 teams as it has been. Last year they didn't make it happen.
Yep. And I'm glad the NHL, speaking of which, is finally expanding, because it has bothered me for the past several seasons with the alignment that there's 16 teams in the East, 14 in the West. So the teams in the West have a better shot at making the playoffs statistically.
Right.
Because the East has 2 more teams. So it's that much more difficult for the Eastern teams to make the playoffs. So I'm glad that they're finally trying to even it out a little bit anyway.
You're right.
They're going to add Los Angeles now, and I think not Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and I think the next expansion, the next team they add, they're going to try to find a way to make it even. And I think that's why Quebec didn't get a team this time around, because it would even further imbalance things by giving Quebec a team. So,
you wouldn't want to know what I think is going to happen there, but I won't say it.
Don't say it. I know what you're going to say. No,
it has nothing to do with the Carolina Hurricanes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say the Hurricanes are going to move.
In my heart, that the NHL wants to bring back Quebec. I really do. I believe.
Oh yeah. Based on some of the comments I saw out of pre-tournament World Cup games that got played there.
I think what's going to happen, and I could be dead wrong, is they'll bring back the Quebec team, whether it's the Nordiques or whoever they are, and they're going to move Detroit back to the Central.
Back out west?
Back out west.
Makes sense. Although Detroit, that would still make Detroit the only team in the Eastern time zone that plays in the Western Conference.
That's right.
So there's that. I think Detroit would prefer to stay in the East, but
for travel reasons.
Yeah. Travel reasons and time zones.
Yeah.
So, but it makes sense geographically because they're the westernmost team in the Eastern Conference. So,
and you know, the battles between Quebec and Montreal and Boston, can you imagine that? That would just really make that division even more intensely exciting.
Yeah.
Buffalo will get in the fray.
Yep. And I hope if Quebec does come back that they do come back as the Nordique, because I hated to see that team go. The rivalries that what they had with Montreal were amazing. The rivalries that they developed with the Bruins when both teams were good. It wasn't so much when they weren't, because I remember back in the 80s when they had the Stastny brothers and Michel Goulet, and they owned Boston during those years. The Bruins couldn't beat Quebec to save their lives, but there were some tough games. It was good hockey to watch.
And cool uniforms.
I did always like their uniforms, yeah. And I hope they come back with exactly those uniforms. Yeah. They should come back as the Nordique and wear those same, like they never left.
Oh, man, Wayne, you're talking my tunes, let me tell you.
Yeah, so hopefully it'll happen for Quebec, but the NHL's got to figure out how to get it so that there's 16 in each conference in order to get them there.
Yeah.
So that concludes all of our team previews, and let's go ahead and move on to our KHL Minute as we head towards the end of the show. And I have one story out of the KHL Minute. We talked a little bit about CSKA, the old, or also known as the old Red Army team, last week, and how good a start they had. Well, they actually ended up going on to having a 10-game winning streak. But this past week, that 10-game winning streak was snapped by Barry's Astana. They lost a game 4-0 on the 20th.
Wow.
Goalie Henrik Karlsson pitched a shutout while 4 different Barry's players scored goals in that game. And the loss actually dropped CSKA down to 10-2, while Barry's improved to 3-5-1. So Barry's isn't even one of the stronger teams in the KHL, but they somehow pulled off the win.
Yeah. Oh,
that was my KHL moment.
Yes, sir. The one I had was Valery Nichushkin leaving the Dallas Stars and going over to the KHL. He is an NHL player who left the NHL.
Yeah, he was a restricted free agent for the Stars, as I understand.
That's right.
Yep.
And Jim Nill, I think his name is Jim Nill.
Yep, the GM.
The GM for the Dallas Stars said he expected it, that it didn't surprise him at all that Nichushkin would go back to Russia. So
he'll be gone for 2 years, as I understand, right?
At
least that's what the report I saw said, that he signed a 2-year contract.
Okay. Yes, I see that where that's the case.
Yep.
And
I think he was unhappy with the amount of playing time he was getting to. He is only 21, so
yeah.
I think he expected top line minutes, but when you've got Tyler Seguin and the talent that they've got there,
they've got Jamie Benn, and his brother
Jordy Benn, defenseman,
yeah.
But with those two in particular, Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin on the top line, there's very little room for for anybody else up there. So, but I do know the Stars said that they're hoping that he does come back.
Yeah.
Probably after he matures a little bit more.
Yeah.
So he's kind of looking like the next Alexander Radulov at this point.
Yeah. He shirks the NHL for the KHL.
I saw there was another guy that left for the KHL too. Former Edmonton defenseman Nikita Nikitin.
Yes.
Signed with Avangard Omsk.
Yes.
And I believe he was another situation where he was either a restricted free agent or a straight up free agent and decided to go back to the KHL.
I saw that one too.
So,
yes, sir.
Cool.
Very good.
All right, so let's go on to our picks of the week.
Yes, sir. You want me to give mine first? I think on this segment, sometimes I may run across a good website, but the chances of it, Wayne, they dwindle as the week goes by. I read news stories, and I am a sentimentalist guy, and if it's touching to my heart, I'm going to think about it.
All right.
And the one that got me this week, my pick of the week, is a lady named Joyce Kettleberger, who is a big Philadelphia Flyers fan. I believe she lives in New Jersey. And she underwent she had a heart attack recently and was in the hospital and underwent treatment there. And she received a very, very big gift when she got home from Shane Gostisbehere and his family. She got a Team North America T-shirt that she proudly wore. If you'll read the article on NHL.com, she's sporting a couple pictures of it.
Oh, cool.
And Shane Gostisbehere sent this to her. But there's more to the story than just that. She apparently wears Shane Gostisbehere's jersey around the house, during the year, especially during Flyers games. And her husband, who is also a big Flyers fan, took pictures of that jersey and put it on social media. And the Gostisbehere family saw those pictures and tweeted her and said, the only difference between you and us, we wear the jerseys too, is you're drinking a beer and we're having a glass of wine watching these games. Otherwise, it's the same thing, So that was all great, but his family, I guess, lives down in Florida.
Okay.
So when that started up a friendship between the Gostisbehere family and Joyce Kettleberger. And when Claude Giroux had his, I guess, annual bowling tournament in Philadelphia, I guess he's an avid bowler, and he holds a fundraising bowling event there in Philadelphia. Well, Joyce went to that. This is a few months ago before her heart trouble. And she went there and met Shane Gostisbehere there, and she said, now, I've become good friends with your family. I know this lady, and I do not have her name here on my list, but Shane said, oh, I know who you are. I've seen pictures of you wearing my jersey. So
cool.
He knew who she was, and it started up a friendship, and they kept it going, and they thought of her when she was in the hospital. They found out about it, I guess, through social media, and they sent her that T-shirt, and it was very touching. But I really believe the point of this whole pick of the week, Wayne, and I'm going to say it from the heart, hockey players care.
They do.
They care more than any other league.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Best at caring about people and their situations. They go to hospitals where kids are sick and people are sick, and they leave their jerseys and they spend time. They are the salt of the earth when it comes to professional sports.
Yep.
And so whenever I read stories like this, it touches my heart, and I am so glad that I'm a hockey fan. It makes me so proud to watch these games and watch these guys. I care so much about them.
Yep.
So just wanted to say that.
And I couldn't agree more with you 1%. And on the other side of things too, you don't see hockey players with the long rap sheets that you see, other leagues, NFL, NBA, whatever you want to call it. All these other leagues seem to have problems with guys getting in trouble with the law. You never hear that from hockey players.
That's right.
The guys are humble. They're approachable. I mean, if you see them out in public, they'll stop. They'll take pictures with you. If they see you're a fan, particularly in a small city like we have here in Carolina, where the guys go out and they aren't always recognized. because the hockey community here is a little bit smaller than you would say like in a Toronto or Montreal. Toronto, Montreal, Boston, that's kind of an exception to the rule where those guys can't leave their house without being mobbed.
That's right.
But in a smaller city like Nashville or here in Carolina, where not everybody who's a sports fan is also a mad hockey fan, these guys can go out in public and they'll mingle with the people. They'll stop, take pictures, listen to your stories. I mean, I hear story after story after story of hockey players being just general good human beings, and I think it's great, and I hope they continue to be so because that's what makes us love, or it's part of what makes us love the game so much.
Oh,
for sure,
absolutely, 100%. I tell you a quick story. Every time my wife and I, we go to the Rangers games in Raleigh, and when the game is over, we know where the bus is. The bus stop, they park. The bus is parked behind this gated fence,
right?
And you can't get in to see the players, but you can stand there and watch, and you can tell when the Rangers come out to get on their bus to go to the airport. Well, every year, fail none, bar none, twice a year we go. And those guys will send out one and sometimes two players from the bus to the gated fence where all these Ranger fans stand. And my wife and I are always there, even in the snow, in the freezing cold, The last one we went to was a freezing cold game in January. But yep. We stand out there and wait and try to get pictures or autographs, and it doesn't matter who they send out. One time it was Chris Kreider. Another time it was Rick Nash came out.
Wow.
There's several, but they will sign autographs until there's not another autograph to be signed. Every single person who's there, if they want to get an autograph signed, those players will sign it. And
I've gone down there behind. I know where you're talking about. I've been down there behind there after games before, and usually the crowd that goes there to see the opposing team is not a big crowd. You may have 25 to 50 people at most. So we're not talking about hundreds of people where the bus is having to be held up because there's so many people. It only takes a minute for these guys to come out and talk to the fans. And I've even seen guys. I've gone down back there where they have actually run into people they know who've come back to, around there and see them. Yeah. And they'll come running up the fence and give the people a hug or, oh, hey, how you been? I haven't seen you. What are their former teammates, former neighbors, whatever it is. They bump into them down here and they're excited to see them. And, of course, they thank them to coming to the games and all that. And on the home team side, the Carolina Hurricanes, of course, the players park their cars behind this gated fence for game nights. And oftentimes they'll come out and they'll stop as they're coming out and sign my kids have gotten dozens of autographs from Carolina Hurricanes players. I mean, my son has a puck that's signed by Cam Ward. He's got Joe Corvo when he played here. He's got his autograph. He's got several different autographs of players that have signed stuff basically sitting in their cars as they're leaving. They stop and sign autographs. It's very common for them to do that. So yeah, it's a great community, and of course we love it.
Yeah, man, that was good. Thank you,
right.
Wayne, for letting me share that.
So moving to my pick of the week, it's a little bit heart touching, but I happen to notice this week that the major junior leagues up in Canada, Canadian Hockey League, start up this week. Last night, which was Wednesday, the OHL started their regular season. Tonight, Thursday night, on the 22nd, the Quebec League starts theirs, and then tomorrow night, the Western Hockey League gets going. So all three leagues have been playing preseason games up to this point, but their regular seasons do get underway this week. And for those of you in the U.S. who aren't familiar with the Canadian Hockey League and the three major junior leagues in Canada, these leagues are pretty much the primary source for NHL prospects, particularly Canadian-born prospects. All the players in that league are 16 to 20 years old. It's viewed kind of as a competing league to what the Americans use down here for prospects. The Americans generally go the NCAA route in general. There's a few Americans that choose to go play Canadian Major Junior. I happen to be pretty partial towards the NCAA route, though. Like if I were to have a son that were playing at that level and could choose between playing NCAA Canadian Hockey League, I would strongly encourage him to choose the NCAA route, just because the Canadian Hockey League, yeah, you probably get more exposure to pro prospects or pro scouts and teams, but you have that education that comes along with it. So I've always believed the NCAA, because you don't know when you go into those leagues whether you're going to be. I mean, there's 60 teams in the CHL, 60 or more. There's 60 teams in the NCAA. Well, there's only 30 teams in the NHL. So those 120 teams of prospects get whittled down to just 30 teams. Yeah. So right off the bat, 1 out of 4 players on every CHL team on average are going to make the NHL. The rest of them will be minor leagues. So why not get an education while you're at it?
There you go. Oh, that's a good point.
So, and I'm pretty excited because the NCAA is getting going here shortly. Most teams start up on the first week of October. And we'll be talking a lot about NCAA hockey in the weeks and months to come. And we'll also talk a little bit about the CHL as well, because after all the best Canadian players do generally come out of that league. Mm-hmm. But so the junior leagues are getting going. The pros are getting their preseasons going. So everything is pretty much starting up at this point.
Yeah. Exciting time, Wayne.
It is.
Exciting time.
Every team is starting out with the same record at this point. So
there you go. Yep.
So we're all excited. With that note, we'll end this week's show. And next week, we're going to go ahead and finish up our team previews. We're going to have the Central Division teams, 7 teams out there. And then, of course, we're going to wrap up the World Cup coverage on next week's show. Everything should be done by then, I would think, or
yes,
almost done. We'll certainly be heading into the very. I don't think we'll be quite done. We'll just have the final series. So we'll pretty much be finished with the World Cup stuff. But we will have seen some NHL preseason games by next week's show. So, because they start right up within the next several days. I think this weekend, don't they?
Yes, sir.
The preseason games, right. The NHL preseason.
Yep. They start Sunday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. So we'll be talking about all the action coming out of the NHL then. And then whatever else comes up in the headlines, we'll be talking about that too. So with that, we'll go ahead and end it right here. And until next week, we'll see you later. Well, there you have it. Meaningful hockey has finally started, and we couldn't be more excited. Next week, we'll wrap up our team previews by taking a look at the remaining 7 teams in the Central Division, along with discussing the headlines of the week in the NHL. We'll also discuss all of the World Cup results. If you like the show, please show us your support by subscribing to it using your favorite podcatcher, program, or app. You can also share it with your friends. The Hockey Nuts podcast can be found on major podcast search engines like iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. Just search for the term The Hockey Nuts in those apps. There are a few ways you can get involved with the show. You can email the show at feedback@thehockeynuts.com, or you can leave us a voicemail on our voicemail box at area code 919-960-1718. We will address your feedback on future episodes of the Hockey Nuts podcast. Also, you can tweet us. I'm at WayneHalley9. Steve is SBall504man. Also, be sure to visit our website at thehockeynuts.com. The site is as new as the show, but we have a blog going already, and we've been hard at work writing midsummer update articles on all 30 NHL teams. In the future, we'll be offering not only a blog, but all kinds of resources on that website, not just for hockey fans, but for those of you who want to get involved in the game in your area as a player, coach, official, or even the Zamboni guy. As always, links that we mentioned in the show are also available in the show notes for this episode. Finally, we're also looking for a future guest for the show. Obviously, we're not experts on every team and league in hockey, so if you consider yourself more knowledgeable than us on a particular team or league, we certainly want to hear from you. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Hockey Nuts podcast, and until next week, we'll see you at the rink.